Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Get Geek podcast, where we celebrate geek, nerd, and pop culture. Each week, we deliver the best analysis for fans, by fans, on anything related to movies, TV, video games, comics, anime, and manga. We talk geek. And now, here's the Get Geek podcast.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to another episode of the Get Geek podcast. I am Jose.
This is AJ.
And this is Walt.
And this week we are discussing the finale, the series finale of Wandavision, episode 9, titled the series finale. But first, a couple of quick disclaimers. You've heard them ad nauseum for the last couple of weeks, but we just want to remind y'all out there, we are recording remotely. So if there are any sound issues or artifacts or any other problems you have with the podcast that go beyond the sound or anything regarding the sound, please let us know. We absolutely love feedback from our fans. So please, whatever you want to talk to us about, if it's a problem, you can let us know. And by the way, the best way to support your favorite podcast crew is to like, rate, share, and subscribe to your favorite podcast. You know the spiel. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms, wherever your favorite podcasts are sold. So please give us some feedback, give us some likes, rate, shares, and subscribes. Interact with us. We love interacting with our fans. And yeah, let's get started. Let's talk about WandaVision episode 9, the series finale. And that's leading us into the next big series that's coming out in just a couple of weeks, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But this episode, very quickly, it's just Wanda and Vision and all the protagonists basically fighting for the fate of themselves and for the fate of Westview against Agatha Harkness and all of our other antagonists, let's say, for this show. Let's get right into it. Like I said, first off, I want to talk about let's talk about this like in terms of how we enjoyed and viewed and where we see the characters maybe going on the show, both in this series obviously and in the future of the MCU. I want to talk about White Vision and Vision first, right? So the beginning of the episode, of course, Agatha is fighting Wanda, and then White Vision ends up showing up and ends up attacking Wanda, right? But then Vision shows up and saves Wanda from White Vision. They have this big Vision brawl, which for me, I'll just say really quickly, I thought that fight was really, really cool. I think that was one of the best fights I've seen in the MCU so far with Vision. I thought it was just really cool how they kind of had their back and forth with those powers.
It's actually the best one. It's actually the best one in the episode.
I was gonna say that, but I didn't want to say it right away. But since you kind of agree with me, I'll say to me that was like the coolest fight of the episode. Not only the back and forth between Vision and White Vision, but I really liked the way that they resolved the fight, actually. So, right, what do you guys think of that?
Well, I happen to agree with you on that because I thought that Vision fight was what you would kind of expect a Vision fight would be, because you know what? Yes, he is this android that can manipulate mass and things like that, and he can fly, and he's using the Mind Stone and all that stuff, but he's also a very intellectual character, and I thought the fight itself, it kind of reflects the character perfectly, you know?
Both of them.
It's this big brawl.
Because you had that moment that I thought was cool in the fight where Vision phases through White Vision, and then if you notice, White Vision does it to him again later in the fight. So they
do it a couple of times during the fight.
Yeah, they learn it from each other, I should say.
You know.
So
I thought it was a very good character driven fight, you know, because everything that we know of Vision was perfectly encapsulated in that fight. You know, you start out with the brawl, but at the end of the day, he's very intellectual and, you know, very, very thoughtful. And they end up with the boat of Theseus, which I thought was a spectacular thing to bring up. Theseus,
thank you, AJ. Yeah, that's why I really liked the resolution of the fight. Actually, that was interesting to me because, like you said, Walt, and I want to hear what you think, AJ. Like, that was a very, very well character driven fight, and also I think resolution to the fight basically. I don't know. What did you think of
Hmm.
that, AJ? With everything involving Vision and White Vision, I guess in terms of the fight and the resolution of
I guess you could say it was visionary.
it. A visionary
Actually,
series.
Eli kind of called it in terms of how it the 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 end of the fight, but now not exactly how it
Hmm.
happened, right?
That
In
wasn't
terms of
Eli.
no, I'm sorry, AJ. I'm sorry, AJ actually called it prior to this because he said,
What
"Well,
would you say, AJ?
you explain it."
Tell us.
So originally, what I thought was going to
Mhm.
happen, because it's clear that quote unquote real vision can't leave the
Hmm.
hex. So when they introduced spectral vision, I was like, okay, well, wait, that's an actual vision. What if that's actually a bad thing for Hayward? Because what if Wanda just goes, hey, wait, this is Vision's actual
Hmm.
consciousness. That's a physical vision. Let's just throw that thing
Yeah.
in there.
But it ended up being Vision
And
doing it
yeah,
to White Vision.
yeah.
Right. Hmm.
So in a way, it did kind of happen, just not exactly detail by
I think
detail.
that's one of the few things that I actually called about this finale episode, because if you guys remember, and full admissions, we had all kinds of theories about Mephisto and Chthon and all this other stuff.
Yeah, not that
Oh,
wasn't
none of that
happening.
came true.
Kind
Sorry,
of glad
I
it
saw
didn't.
that
Right,
coming.
right. But
I saw
I
that coming.
do have the one prediction, like I said, that I made was that the vision that was in WandaVision from the start was real, quote unquote, but could only exist inside the hex, and that Wanda would have to make that gamble or that decision at the end, kind of like Wonder Woman, if you guys remember. I thought she would have to decide between, being the hero or like keeping her fake life with Vision and all of that. So that was maybe the one thing that I got right. But yeah, I think I agree. I think that the way that they reasoned with each other to resolve that fight was actually pretty spectacular, and made me like the character of Vision even more than I already have so far in this series. Um, and I do want to say, like we'll get to it maybe a little bit later because this involves Wanda's character, of course. But I really enjoyed the goodbye, the final scene. I think like overall the episode had some rough moments and some great moments, and I think that Vision was involved in a lot of the episode's great moments, and so was Wanda. But Vision
Yeah,
was like really involved in the ending goodbye and all of that as well.
Yeah, Paul Bettany was really, really good in this series.
Yes, yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still not gonna lie. I'm still kind of angry that he said, "Oh, there's gonna be this super awesome dude," and it ended up just being himself.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. He said something I think on Good
Like,
Morning America. He was like
yeah,
basically like they're gonna be so mad when they find out it was me. But you know what? You know what I want to know? I actually want to know what somebody else thinks about the fight between Vision and White Vision. And I want to know what that person thinks of Vision's arc real quick. And I want to know what they thought of the resolution of the fight between Vision and White Vision. Eli, what's up?
Hello.
How did I how did I know
what?
you were there?
He just phased in here. What?
Late arrival to the
I'm back.
podcast here.
Yeah, he just like vision phased
Sorry.
into the podcast. So tell me though, Eli,
Yeah.
and what's up? It's good to hear from you. I'm glad that you were able to join us. What did you think of
Thank you.
Vision, White Vision, the fight between the two of them, and the resolution of the fight? Really quick thoughts on that in the episode.
It was I mean, you can already guess what I'm about to say. It was a little bit cringe.
How'd I
Oh
know?
man,
How did I
we all
know?
liked it, so we figured
Why?
you were gonna hate it.
It was I don't
Yeah.
Why?
know. It's just I don't know. I thought there were much more ways that you could go about a situation like that, and they just happened to choose the one that
That
I
was
didn't
the
like.
only
Well,
way,
wait,
because that's who
I know.
Vision
Eli,
And that's why I
is.
didn't like the whole idea with White
you mean
Vision.
the way that they resolved the fight, or the way?
Well, you didn't like White Vision at all.
I didn't like White Vision
Okay.
at all.
Okay, so his problem was with the character itself.
Yeah, I just felt like it was like one of those last resort. Let's reach for this. Just push him into this, just because. I mean, why we need Vision to live on? It's just like
I
a
can see
failsafe.
where I guess I can see where you can say that it kind of feels like an easy way to bring Vision back,
Yeah,
you know.
it was like a
So
failsafe. So I just didn't like it.
so you didn't like the way that they handled it though, you know.
Well,
Aside from the fact that White Vision is here, and he shows up in the last two
Mhm.
episodes, and you know they bring him there for a specific reason. But do you like the way that they handled White Vision and his transition into
no,
quote unquote the Vision?
no, I didn't like his thing at
Okay.
all. At
What
all.
did you
It just felt so
What did you think
predictable.
about Vision, his character? Let's separate him from White Vision. What did you think about him in this
Yeah,
episode? And I guess quick
Hex Vision.
thoughts on him as a character this season. Did you enjoy it, or was that also kind of cringe?
No, he was good because it showed how like he played more of a human role than he did an actual android
Hmm.
role, and I think that deserved yay, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
That sort of
we
thing.
definitely got to see more of why he and Wanda fell for each other and how human he was, how human he became actually from his start in Age of Ultron until his end in Infinity War. I will say that for the fans, and Walt, you know this as well, there is precedent in the comics with the White Vision character. He was basically a similar origin to the White Vision in the series. He was a rebuilt Vision that didn't have Vision's soul, basically. And in the comics, that's Wonder Man who gives Vision his personality and his soul, not Jarvis or the Mind Stone or anything like that. But it is handled a
unfortunately.
little bit differently. And you know what, Eli? I do kind of agree. And then we'll let's get to some other aspects of this episode. But I agree in the sense that I thought, just as an overall episode, it was a little rushed, and I think that was a an issue with the short nature of the entire series, that they couldn't really expand the last episode a little bit more to fit everything in, and so I thought they could have
Yeah.
done a little bit more with White Vision in that way. But I overall kind of liked it.
Before we before we move on from White Vision, can I ask the question because I'm still trying to reach as to figure out why what the motivation was, but what purpose did Hayward play in this whole thing? I mean, we did we ever
He
Yeah.
get
was just
a
to
reason why he was doing all? I know
yeah.
what he was doing. I don't understand why he was
Hayward was
doing it.
stupid.
And I think that's one of the things that kind of took me out of that whole last episode, and why I'm not really sold on saying that this was a great episode, even though it did have a lot of moments, because Hayward was basically just a mustaching twirling
Hmm.
villain with no real purpose except for to push the plot along,
The only
and that's generally not what the MCU
Not
does
anymore.
with
Yeah.
their
That was their early
characters,
villains.
right, exactly. It felt like we were reverting back, and that's the one thing that I really you know walked away from that episode with a really bad taste in my mouth. It was like, what is going on with this guy?
I think we'll certainly see White Vision again. I think this is how they're going to bring him back, obviously, as Eli said. But yeah, Hayward was a wasted character to me, mostly because, like, if any characterization was given as to his reasons why he did what he did, there was that moment in the early episodes where he said to Monica, like, you don't know what it's been like. Well, after the snap, right? He talked about the 5 year period. So
True.
the only
Yeah,
thing I
yeah.
can think of, but they didn't really flesh it out enough, was that he was like paranoid and scared, and he was kind of like Tony Stark trying to put a suit of armor around the
He didn't
world.
trust
But it was poor
heroes.
characterization, I think, in the end, and it just
Yeah,
didn't work for
it
me.
just yeah, I didn't like his
I
character at
like that
all.
actor too, so it's kind
So
of a shame.
yeah, I know that's the problem, because he's a really good actor, but his character was just crap,
Yeah.
to be honest.
So
So
let's
anyway,
move on to let's talk about the Pietro fighting Monica Rambeau or Spectrum or
Pietro.
Photon or whatever you would like to call her. They haven't revealed what her superhero name is going to be yet, but she's clearly got powers
yeah.
now. So we had that moment at the end of 2 episodes ago, I think, where Pietro kind of catches Monica snooping around Agatha's and his house, and then in this episode
Hmm.
he's basically holding her hostage. He seems to have Quicksilver's powers, but then she super easily overpowers him after like a couple of, like, I guess, comedic moments. So I'm gonna say, like I said, I'll open it off this one as well. I didn't like this scene really at all. Okay.
Hmm.
Agreed.
I thought it was a stupid fight. It was. I get kind of what they were trying to do here is like Monica's not understanding her powers yet because they kind of had a throwback to that or a moment like that later in the episode, right when she protects the twins. But like I didn't like the conflict, right? Because he has Quicksilver's powers. They don't really explain why. They don't really explain how. They don't really explain if it's connected to anything in the Fox X-Men universe, which it didn't have to be, but I thought there should have been something a little bit bigger than like, okay, we find out he's Ralph. His last name is Boner. Haha, was played for a joke. It's also a reference to I think Growing Pains, right? Growing Pains is one of the characters was named Boner. But like
Mhm.
the whole resolution of this scene really meant nothing to me because we find out that his name is Ralph Boner. We find out he's a resident of the town, and then we find out absolutely nothing else beyond that. We don't know why Agatha chose
Well,
him. We don't
He's
know
a
his
anything
he's an actor.
else beyond that. But yeah, AJ, what are your
He's an
thoughts?
actor.
his powers were in the
Yeah,
necklace.
but I mean that's kind of
Well, that's
implied.
true.
But
Yeah.
also,
Even
Why did the
still,
fight have to be like? Then he had that comedic moment where he put his hands up and he was like, "You want to tussle?" And then Monica just like hip throws him, and the fight is over.
Well, that's another
Stupid.
thing. He may be fast, but A, he's not
Yeah.
experienced.
Hmm.
B, he doesn't even really know how to
Not
fight.
at all.
He was just really a prankster who, hey, look, I have powers now. Sweet.
Do you think he was aware of what was going on? Because it
Even
didn't look
still.
like it. It looked like he was under a spell.
It looked like he was aware that he was actively working with what's her name?
I don't think so.
no.
So what you're thinking
Uh,
is that maybe in that moment when Monica snatched the
really?
necklace off him,
I don't
he
know.
realized he didn't have
Yep.
powers anymore, and that's why he was scared. Because I read the opposite, and I want to know what you think, Eli. I read the opposite. To me, it seemed like he was breaking from the trance when when Monica pulled the necklace off. What do you think, Eli, of that fight
Oh.
and that
Oh, you
character,
mean like
like that whole scene? And I guess what did you think was going on there?
Well, mm, it was
Cringe.
yeah, and I felt like it was a waste of his
We agree
character.
on that.
I know I
Hmm.
know I said that him being in the multiverse would have been cool, but I understand that you can't really do that with what they did with
Yeah.
Agnes, right? But even still, it was making someone who has powers a prankster, especially in a situation like
Yeah.
this, is just it's so wasted.
It was very silly.
And
It was definitely very silly.
yeah,
What about you, Walt? What did you think of that whole situation? It sounds like you agree, sort of, but flesh it out for me.
Right. It's very, very easy. As much as I disliked Hayward's character, I hated what they did with Pietro's character in this
Mhm.
episode.
Pietro?
Pietro.
Big
Ralph.
difference.
He's an actor because the way she finds out is that he has a
Hmm.
headshot which has his name on it. You know what? To me, this was just really, and this is one of the things I'm going to criticize this series on. This was really poor writing just for the sake of fan service on the part of the writers of the show, because you take a character that's Quicksilver. It's not even the Quicksilver that exists in this universe. It's a Quicksilver that exists in the Fox
Hmm.
universe, and attach nothing to
Hmm.
him in terms of that. You have a character that just, you know, I was excited for the fact that when Darcy, she uttered the line, they recast Pietro. I thought that was brilliant.
yeah,
This episode undid all of that because it had nothing to do with the Fox universe. It had nothing to do with Quicksilver himself. It's just an actor. It had, how in the world did she meaning Agatha, pick a person who just happens to be in Westview that looks exactly like the Quicksilver from another movie universe and then attach
Yeah,
it to that?
I agree.
It
It is
made
like
no
way too
sense whatsoever to me.
way too
Yes.
convenient.
I think for me, like I thought I see where Kevin Feige was going with it. Like it was fun when we first saw it, but the fact that he kind of made him a central character after that was what ruined it for me. Because if you're just gonna have like the
Mm-hmm.
troll, the joke, oh, it's Evan Peters, haha, get rid of him after that. Toss him. Like, like when she like flung him into the gravestones in that episode, when he said, your dead husband can't die twice, he's written out of the show at that point. I think that then I would have been happy,
Yeah.
satisfied, and it's all right. It was an anomaly. It was in her head. That's why he looked that way, and we're moving on with it.
I would have believed that a lot better than the whole, oh, he's an
Mm-hmm.
actor that just happens to live in Westview. That idea that you just suggested, where it's like, everything that's in the hex is changed by
Yeah,
Wanda, that makes a
which
lot
is
of
what they did with
sense.
other things. So it would have made sense
Right.
for this to happen here. And then again, it would have been a
Again,
fun little moment.
another
But
wasted
yeah,
character. Why he served absolutely
in
no
the end,
purpose.
that's what happened. And it was the same with him and Hayward. They were both set up to be something interesting, and they both didn't really end up in a great place, in my
Right.
opinion.
That's a misstep on their part, in my
Right.
opinion.
Okay,
So
so let's move on to, I guess we have in this point we have the continuing conflict between Agatha, Vision, White Vision, Wanda, and the twins come to Wanda's aid. They have uh, Billy has a vision of Wanda when she later in the episode kind of loses control. He has a vision of it, so they go to help her out, and we have what I think is definitely an Incredibles Easter egg, that moment where the family all kind of poses and gets ready to fight. Um, and I like that scene. I thought that scene was entertaining. I thought it was fun how they like had the little moment with them using their powers. And I definitely enjoyed. I thought it was a cool, if cliche, line when Vision says to the boys, like, boys, now me and your mom haven't prepared you for this, and Wanda says, but you were born for it. Like, to me, it was cliche, but it was also kind of like, this is a hint that this is going to be a mutant X-Men thing maybe they're going to tie into later, even if it wasn't tied to in this show. So, I mean, I thought that scene was actually pretty cool. And like I said, I liked how they used their powers, how the kids used their powers, how Wanda continued to use their powers in the scene, and how Vision, well, kind of went off and continued fighting White Vision. We already talked about that. What did you guys think of that quick little Incredibles homage? AJ, 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 your name is not AJ. AJ, please, can you give me your thoughts on that scene?
I mean, it was pretty fleeting, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's what happened after that scene that held my
Mm-hmm.
interest.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it was a little poke.
A little moment. All right, Walt.
Yeah.
Haha, Disney is everywhere. It's just can't get away
I
from
think
it.
The Incredibles was on the
Ah,
awning too when the town went through a couple of phases. I think that was up there. I don't remember if it was this episode or
yeah, I
the
was
last.
trying to see that on the first one. I didn't get a chance, and I haven't gotten a chance to see it again. So,
Yeah, normally
but
I
I'm
watch it
pretty
a
sure.
couple
I'm
of
pretty sure
times, but
they
I
did.
didn't get to do that this week before we started. But
Yeah.
yeah, what else did you guys think about that quick little fleeting moment and the fight and Wanda's conversation and Vision's conversation with the kids? Because that was one of their big moments in the episode.
I think in this episode, the kids were really front and center,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to some of the other episodes. I think they did a really good job in terms of not only bringing them into that final fight and having them actually do something, which up until this point they really haven't been you know doing much of anything. They've kind of been like sideline characters, and this episode actually put them in the forefront. So I do like that they did that. I also like the very
Mm-hmm.
end. It was a good sentimental thing, but I'm curious as to what happens going forward, and I guess we could speak about that a little bit
Mm-hmm.
later. But the way they set up the kids, uh, it's it's very interesting, and it has implications for the MCU going
Yeah.
forward. Um, but like I said, we could talk about it later. But in terms of just that little scene with the fight and the Incredibles, I thought it was well done. I finally liked that they were there.
And they
You
had a
know,
little bit more
Jose.
agency. I agree, because I feel like this episode definitely established that these are characters in the MCU now. Whether you see them
Yeah,
now and they're not even there for a little bit, they will be back somehow. And of course we'll talk about that as well. But
and
yeah.
they're gonna be formidable because they were holding their own as
Yeah,
kids. So imagine, and again, we're
Billy
getting
stops the
into a
bullet,
little bit
right?
of
Tommy
yeah,
takes the
exactly.
guns and takes the hat, just like his brother did in the X-Men movies,
They're gonna
or
be a
his
force
uncle,
when they
right?
grow up, if they grow
Yeah,
up.
which I mean,
And we'll leave that
there's
alone.
definitely, I believe, rumors. I'm not sure it's been confirmed, but there's a lot of rumors about Young Avengers and all that. But I guess we'll see.
They could slot them right in
Well,
there.
Sorry, Young
yeah,
Avengers.
Well, you
Okay.
have a lot of the characters already out there. I mean, you have Kate
hmm
Bishop.
Who's
Um,
that again?
she's Hawkeye's.
mentor
Well,
Oh yeah,
or
yeah,
in the
mentee.
comic books, is it's her daughter. Right? I don't know how exactly they're gonna do it in the Hawkeye show.
yeah. And then you also have Stark's daughter. You have these two
You have
kids.
Yeah,
you have
and
Stark's
you have Iron Man,
friend,
Ironheart coming
right?
out.
Tony Stark's friend, that kid from Iron Man 3. He could be a young
Exactly,
Avenger.
and
Oh,
you do have
oh yeah,
Ironheart. There's I believe that's
Right.
confirmed, right?
It's a cartoon, I
The
think, right?
Ironheart
Riri
series.
Williams,
Or is it?
Ironheart.
Okay.
It's still going to be
Mm-hmm.
canon because the cartoons are going to be canon
Exactly.
unless it's the What If series.
So
So Young
you've
Avengers is
got
being
all
set
these
up.
characters. Yeah,
Eli,
you have all these
hey,
characters
Eli,
out
did
there.
you think that scene was cringe, or did you like? What did you think of
Totally. You
totally
totally
cringe. It
did.
was so cliche
it?
and cringe, but
You know what? I think we need to, whenever we speak to Eli, we got to call it cringe corner.
Yeah, it's not corny anymore. It's cringe. He's
Yeah, it's
evolving.
cringe.
He's evolving to a new place. All right, so it was cringe. I think that's all we need to hear from Eli on this one. Uh, let's get to Agatha in this episode. Okay, Agatha has been one of my favorite characters from episode 1. I love Catherine Hahn. I've enjoyed her as Agnes. I enjoyed the reveal of her as Agatha Harkness. And so in this episode, obviously, as we said before, this is the big final conflict, and we find out about Agatha's big evil plan, which I was pretty lukewarm
I'm
about.
going to absorb you.
Yeah, I was fairly lukewarm about that because, like Walt said about Hayward, it kind of felt like a cackling mustachioed villain, kind of twirling their mustache a little bit. It was better than Hayward by far, and it was better than some of the bad MCU villains that really had no good motivation, but it didn't think it was great. Like, I guess what? She just finds people with powers and absorbs them. That's what she's been doing throughout history. Perhaps. I don't know. What do you guys think of the plan, I
I
guess?
m- my thing with the plan, I think the plan is
hmm
fine because but the problem is we saw another character that has the same plan,
Which one?
which is Baron Mordo.
Oh, yeah.
Baron
Baron
Yeah.
Mordo. Mordo.
and
Yeah.
and
hmm
yeah, Baron Mordo. And I had speculated that he might, along with Doctor Strange, those were my two picks for this
hmm
episode. Um Basically she's Baron Mordo in female
Yeah.
form. And that kind of is perplexing that they would take that stance with her because you know it's quite clear that Mordo isn't finished in the
No,
MCU.
I hope not.
And so you're going to have two basically same characters with the exact same motivation. That was a little weird for me. I liked Agatha's character overall.
hmm
I think she was
Yeah.
fantastic. I was just a little disappointed with that. Um, it just, I mean, it made sense based on her backstory that they gave her in the show,
Yeah.
but we already have a character that we've introduced that we're kind of saying this is what he's going to do. We didn't need another one in this show doing the exact same
Unless they
thing.
team up
You
in
know,
Multiverse of Madness, because they did have the implication that
it's
Agatha would
possible.
be back, right? So, I mean,
Okay, so it's possible that if they do a team up,
it's
you know.
still
but
to
even
me
still,
like just like also the fight between her and Wanda. I got
Yeah.
the concept of it, but it
yeah,
also kind of fell flat to me. But I think it's an issue. So I like very quickly. We can definitely get into this in greater detail, but I think this is where we're going to start running into the MCU power scaling problem, right? Because you
Yeah,
have this
definitely.
character of Wanda Maximoff who becomes the Scarlet Witch in this episode, right? Like she officially achieves the title, she gets the costume, she gets everything. But like
Hmm.
her fight was super underwhelming. It's like just a couple of people floating around like throwing energy blasts at each other. Cool, but like how do we illustrate that she is this Nexus being, this character that is so much stronger than everybody else? I didn't see it in this episode. I saw it more in her
Well,
manipulating the reality, but I didn't see it in anything that she did in the fight with Agatha Harkness.
I will say this. It's still kind of early for Wanda.
Yeah,
So, we get that end credit scene where she's going through the dark
better
hold.
display of her
I
power,
think
I think.
right, exactly. I think that's where we're going to see true Scarlet Witch. I
Mhm.
think right now she's baby Scarlet
Mhm.
Witch.
Yeah.
She hasn't gotten her full power. So, but yeah, I agree with you that fight with her and Agatha was a little underwhelming. It was basically a very poor version of Dragon Ball where they're just throwing off Kamehameha blasts all over the
Until one of
place.
them overwhelms the other, basically.
Yeah, I thought Agatha would probably be a little bit more powerful than that.
Yeah,
You know,
I like the resolution of the fight. I thought the runes thing was relatively clever, even though it was kind of like
very
you didn't,
supernatural.
Yeah, I was about to
Yeah.
say
you didn't. But
that.
the only thing I would say about that is that, like, really, Agatha, you didn't see because you saw that moment where she was like, "Why is she missing me?" kind of on purpose, right? Agatha had that sort of realization. You didn't see the runes
You don't
popping
think
up.
Agatha
Mm,
was you don't think Agatha was probably a little overconfident in thinking that Wanda didn't know how to use her
Sure,
powers?
but we've seen
That's what
that a
I
lot
I got.
too from villains. It's like
Yeah.
overconfident villain
Oh yeah.
loses because they're too overconfident again. It's like a James Bond villain that explains their whole plan. It's like, all right, we've seen it
Yeah,
before,
exactly.
and she did explain her whole plan. So James Bond villain, right? I don't know.
Basically.
Eli, was this
Like,
cringe or no? AJ, I'm sorry. Were you going to say something?
Yeah.
yeah,
Thoughts?
I was gonna say like, I mean, maybe it was also the power going to her head.
Yeah,
He was like, yeah, no one can touch me with their magic. If she misses, so what?
yeah,
Yeah,
because she was just absorbing it, right? I was surprised she wasn't like trying to get
yeah.
in the way of it, like jump in the way of the magic as she was missing. But
You know what would have been
what?
cool? Because, and she even said it during the fight too. Wanda was like, "You want the power, you can have it." I was fully
The
expecting
Hulk.
a Hulk style moment.
Yeah.
It was like, "Take it
Yeah.
all," and it's like, "Oh my god, it's too
But
much."
we've seen that before too. I don't know if I would have loved that
Yeah.
either, to be honest. Plus, I didn't
Yeah.
want. Well, it wouldn't have necessarily have killed Agatha, but I definitely didn't want her to die. I really like her character. I want to see more of her, even though the ending for me was a little underwhelming. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Eli? What did you think of Agatha's character, the fight,
Yeah.
and her fate, which we'll talk about also, I guess. Was that cringe?
They ruined her.
Cringe.
There's four corners to this cringe corner, apparently.
Just cringy
No,
all around.
like it wasn't cringe. It was just another wasted character. Because I literally like back in like episode what, like 2 episodes
Mhm.
ago, right? From the last episode, you had that super awesome Agatha theme song, which I love.
Which hit number one on iTunes,
Yeah.
by the way.
No way.
Yeah, it
It was
did.
Agatha
Yeah.
all along.
It hit number one.
Yeah,
Really?
it
Yes,
did.
it did.
Wow.
It hit number one on
Absolutely
iTunes.
did.
So a lot of people like that.
Yeah, but like I expected so much from her and it was just put to waste because she barely did anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm gonna
I would
jump
say,
on a point that you made,
Mhm.
Jose, was that now we're getting into power levels, and I think this is where the MCU is gonna have a hard time doing that because before it's all about strength and dexterity and intelligence and stuff
Right.
like that. Magic is such an abstract
Mm-hmm.
concept that and I think maybe that has something to do with why we thought this fight with Agatha and Wanda was so underwhelming because how do you really show a magic
It's the
fight?
Harry
You
Potter
know, I
syndrome
mean,
too, right? Because have you guys seen all the Harry
exactly.
Potter movies?
Yes, we
Right. So
have.
I don't
remember
remember.
Yeah, it's
the
been a
big
while.
showdown between Harry Potter and Voldemort where they just basically do a Dragon Ball struggle and they shoot beams at each other?
never
Yeah,
saw
just
it.
with wands.
Yeah, they have a wand off
Yeah.
basically where they shoot beams at
Oh.
each other and eventually well, and this is a little different cuz Voldemort wins, right? And him killing
Mhm.
Harry ends up, we all know the story, right? Him and killing Harry ends up being to
I
his detriment.
actually don't.
He killed Harry.
Yeah.
Really?
Remember it?
I've never seen it.
Well, I just
Dude,
spoiled
come
it
on.
for you.
We saw it together.
not the last movie.
We saw the last movie. You just don't remember it.
Yeah, you
Same
don't
as me.
remember. Just like the last three things that you said, oh, I don't remember that. We never saw it. And then we're like, oh, yeah, we
Well,
did.
see,
One of those things I
there
really
you go,
didn't see.
though.
We haven't seen it in a long
Beam
time.
struggles
I will say
are
that.
only cool in anime. They're not cool in live action. They're just not.
Oi,
Right? So, like,
I
So-
beg to differ. I will always support a good old beam struggle in Godzilla.
okay, that's different.
No.
But Godzilla is closer to anime than it is to live action, I think.
Yeah, you're
It's
gonna
true.
have that like super
Right.
powerful.
But I think going forward, Magic is going to be a really tough cookie for
Yes.
MCU to crack.
I mean, it doesn't
There
even
was-
really need to be, though.
Yeah, there were so many ways you could go about that.
Exactly, but they didn't
Yeah.
do it. That's the
Like,
problem.
But they should have.
They didn't. Doctor
Like,
Strange had more
it-
interesting
it's-
magic and powers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not really the power struggle that's really a main problem because
I don't really think that's a problem either. It's
Yeah.
just you can do that, but you can also do other things. Like I'm pretty sure there was a spell if she
Mhm.
could make a frog into what's it? A fly. You could do something
Well,
with like
Loki
tree
turned-
roots, whatever. I don't know. It's something like that.
Loki turned Thor into a frog.
You know what I wanted to see?
Yeah, like
You know what I wanted to see?
it would have been cool if there's like out of nowhere. Hey, let's make that card.
You know
a
what would have been cool?
dragon."
You know what would have been cool? Because
What?
like Wanda has these reality warping powers. Why didn't we see her use them in some cool way? Especially since
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
Agatha had them also because she was absorbing her powers, right? So like, wouldn't it have been cool if like the street started to like some Doctor Strange stuff where the whole environment starts to warp
Well,
and
didn't
like
they?
attack them? But all she did was the
Didn't
same
they-
thing she did to
didn't she
Tony
do
Stark
that?
in Civil War. She threw a car at her. We've seen that before.
No, but there was one point where Agatha kind of took her reality warping things and brought.
No, it was the opposite. Wanda, remember,
was it
used
the
her red
opposite?
wiggly woos to bring Agatha into her past, thinking she could beat her that way.
So it was her.
Remember,
Okay.
she did that.
But it did happen. They could have played more on that.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying?
exactly. But
I
instead,
think
they
that's
just
the thing.
rammed each other, fired red blasts out of each other's hands, and did red wiggly woos, like Pietro said, and it didn't really seem evolved from what we've seen from her before. Well, that's just me.
But even still, doing that weird past thing, it was so underwhelming because
No, I thought that weird past thing
Yeah,
was
but
great.
That was
Good.
better
No,
than the
for
rest of
me-
it.
For me, well, yeah, definitely. But
Yeah.
even still, I felt that was so underwhelming because it was like, what, you were gonna scare her to death and then lock
Well,
her
she
up?
did it before.
She would just be paralyzed with fear, and then they locked
Remember,
her up?
she's
I
done that
felt that-
before effectively against all of the Avengers. So
I
she
know,
might
but-
think that she could do it on Agatha and just be like, "I got you now, B." Like, but she
Yeah,
Not
but-
realizing Agatha will power out of
Agatha
that.
was smarter.
Yeah, but I just feel like playing on people's past is getting sold at this point, and it's getting so underwhelming.
The whole show was
It's
about her
just-
past.
Yeah.
Well,
like
playing on it with like a fight scene and stuff. That's what-
Yeah,
like bringing back memories and stuff. It's just
that's a power that a lot
I
of
think we could all-
heroes and villains have. They like, it's like the Crow.
Yeah.
They like grab your head and all your pain returns. It was only cool in the Crow. All right,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
talk about the star of
Yeah.
the show. Right, let's talk about the co-star of the show because WandaVision. Right, let's talk about Wanda.
Mhm.
Right, so let's talk about her in this episode. We already said that the fight was kind of underwhelming, right? But I'm gonna say, to simply summarize, Wanda for me, other than those couple of moments, was an absolute highlight of this episode. Okay, I thought Elizabeth Olsen knocked some of the really emotional moments out of the park, just like Paul Bettany did.
For the whole
Right?
series, also.
Yeah, 100%.
The whole
I mean, I read a
series.
great review that puts it this way: she had to be a 50s housewife, a 60s housewife, a 70s sitcom character, an 80s sitcom character, 90s sitcom character, her old Sokovian self, her
Agreed.
new self, a brainwashed woman, a woman grieving. She played like 70 million different roles in the show. So kudos to Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, the rest of the cast were fantastic. I enjoyed the emotional moments, like I said, with Wanda in this episode. So, the decisions she had to make were really cool. Obviously, you have the moment where Agatha tells her like heroes don't torture people, and she starts to open the hex and then realizes that's gonna kill her kids and kill Vision, and closes it back up. I thought that was a pretty well played scene for the most part. I thought the ending was fantastic. I thought the emotional goodbye with the kids, the emotional goodbye with Vision, some great lines in that scene when she says to Tommy and Billy, thanks for choosing me to be your mom. I think not only was that a great line, but it might end up being something that we come back to later on that has some meaning in it, right? And I thought the goodbye with Vision, where she tells him what he is, quote unquote, right? That he's her memories, part of the Mind Stone, her love, her grief, that beautifully, wonderfully played scene. Fantastic emotionally, like I said, from her and Paul Bettany, knocked it out of the freaking park. I think the costume is finally a really, really good Scarlet Witch costume. I think it's one of the best costumes we've seen so far, actually, in the MCU. I
You
personally
know what
loved it.
annoys me? You know what
What?
annoys me?
Yes.
That costume has been out there in plain sight and we didn't even
Yeah,
see it.
What?
It was in the
yeah.
posters.
Really?
What?
Yeah, there were bits and pieces of the costume in the
I thought,
posters,
What
And
posters?
nobody saw it.
and nobody said anything about it. That's the thing that again, MCU
yeah,
brilliance, right?
there was some brilliant moments even in this episode. And I definitely loved some of the stuff that we see later on in post credits, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Her astral projecting like Doctor Strange, and like she's having tea in her regular body and studying the freaking Darkhold in her astral body. Super dope.
That's
And there's an
multitasking.
Easter egg in that scene too that we will talk about. But so yeah, for me, Wanda was definitely a high point. There was only one part that I'll say I did not like at all in her interactions in this episode, is when she's basically completed the fight, when she's locked up Agatha as in her mind, I guess, as a member of that town forever, which is kind of a messed up fate, but maybe we'll get to that in a moment, and the implications of that. But her conversation with Monica, where she apologizes but doesn't apologize to the town for basically like taking over their bodies and lives. She's like, and Monica has this weird moment where she's like, they'll never know the sacrifice you made. And Wanda says, it it's not going to matter. Well, I agree. It shouldn't matter. You put a bunch of people under your spell and made them your slaves. Like that was weird. That whole ending of that
I
resolution.
mean,
What did you guys think,
yes, but
AJ?
in a sense, you also can't like. There aren't really any words for that. They're still gonna be pissed either way. Like, oh hey guys, so the reason why you were like stuck under my thrall for a year is because I wanted to have a nice environment for my
Yeah.
fake kids.
I know, but
Still,
Like,
if she had addressed
you can
them,
still say it,
addressed the
but
town, it would have been
then
better.
he doesn't even want to really face that though. Let's be
Because you know what it
honest.
was to me, she
yes,
just walked right past all the people in the town and walked right up to Monica, like ignored all of them, said her piece to Monica, and then left. Like it was
You
weird.
know, you know what I'm really afraid of is that um, the the folks over at Marvel, there's going to be no repercussions for her going forward. You know,
I don't think so, but we'll talk
there
about them.
has to be some repercussions for this because you know what? Again, you know, if you look at it, the way it's been shaped, Wanda is the reason why we have the Sokovia Accords. She's not solely the reason, but her actions in Lagos was really truly the driving force that said, okay, enough's enough.
Yeah,
We need to put the
that
Sokovia
was the
Accords
final
out
straw.
there.
Hmm.
You know, yeah, that was the final straw. And then, you know, you can say all you want about, you know, she's grieving and you know, she's a super and this is how people, but you literally hijacked, you held hostage
Yeah.
an entire town. There has to be some repercussions. And the thing that scares me is that my thing was with this series, I was kind of hoping that they were going to turn Wanda into a villain
Hmm.
because I thought that was really the most interesting endpoint for her in the series. And they chose not to
Hmm.
do it in a sense, right? Because she still had the morality to say, you know what, I'm hurting these people. This I have to bring the hex down. Okay, so they kind of, but at the same time, for 9 episodes, she held these people captive, knowing that they did not want to be there.
I'm hoping.
You know, and
I'm hoping that we get an explanation in
Well,
Doctor
see,
Strange
there
too.
here,
has to be something.
Because
Something has to happen to
here's
AJ,
her.
definitely I'll let you give it that thought, but like if they don't explain where Doctor Strange was, number one, because this
Which
is his
makes no
wheelhouse,
sense.
like somebody messing with reality.
Yes,
Number
exactly.
one. And number two, if they don't explain a little bit of the repercussions, like Walt said, I'm gonna have some issues. But I think they're gonna do it in Multiverse of Madness. But what were you gonna say, AJ?
I mean, maybe Sword won't go after her because again, Monica's kind of in the
Mm.
know and gets it, and then of course you have Nick Fury. But maybe like the U.S. government will have more of a bone to pick
Or Doctor
with,
Strange.
like especially the military.
Yeah,
Thunderbolt Ross has to say something.
Somebody's got to
Oh
have
yeah,
something about this.
yo,
For
yeah.
sure. He's gonna be the one who's gonna be like, okay, so witch hunt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody's
Literally.
got to do
has
something
to be.
about it. Somebody's got to do
You,
something about
you know, I don't know, but you know what I find completely
it. Hmm.
weird is that the fact that Monica was apologetic to
Yeah,
him.
that's what I'm saying. I thought it was
Yeah,
weird.
it
Well, yeah,
Like everybody else
I mean,
was in Wanda's head just like Monica was. So they all knew it was because
and
of grief. So why what just
mhm.
because Monica was only there for a couple of days, maybe? Is that why she was like, "Oh, it's cool." Everybody else they were there for a few weeks, so they're like, "Screw you, Scarlet Witch, you suck." I don't know.
I would have figured it would have been like some sort of thing where she'll tell her like, there are consequences you'll have to face sooner or later about this,
Yes,
right?
that would have been better.
But like there was nothing. She
But
was
I
just like,
They
mean,
could have
at
done.
the same,
I would have even accepted a Men in Black moment where she wipes the memories of everybody involved in that
I
place.
still
I
would
would
have
have
liked to
even
see the
accepted
implications of
that.
that, but yes, it would have
No,
been
no, I
better.
know,
but
but
Yeah,
but exactly. At least there's something where it's like, okay, I know I messed up. Let me see how I can fix it. Instead of I know I messed
peace.
up. Yeah, later.
I'm
Exactly.
out.
You know.
Like, and it would have been even
I,
better if she fixed her mess up with another mess up. Then we get a really cool way to
Exactly.
set up the rest of this stuff. I don't
Hmm.
know, Eli. What else did you think about Wanda? I guess as a character overall, and in this episode, did you like her costume? Do you like where we're going with her? What else is your thoughts for Wanda in this episode?
yeah, I thought she was really well done, but
Hmm.
like you guys said, there were parts where she could have been portrayed as more of a
Yeah.
villain. Because honestly, that's probably what we were all expecting from this, and they screwed that up.
Hey,
And
you
well,
I
you
know the
grew up.
dark.
You
what
grew up with Superhero Squad. She was a villain in Superhero Squad. Remember?
Yes, she was. She was never really a good guy.
Yeah, she's always a
I'm gonna.
gray character. Well, not always, but
Yeah,
she's definitely
not
had some of
always.
her best storylines when she is a gray character. That's some of the best storylines that
Hmm.
she has in Marvel Comics. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I thought overall it was pretty good. And, we'll see where Wanda's character goes in the future. I'm very excited to see what happens from the
well,
end credit scene, at least, that we get.
yeah, I was gonna say there's still a lot of potential for Scarlet Witch to become a villain because it's finally confirmed in this episode
Darkhold.
that that book is the
Yep. Hmm.
Darkhold.
Agents of
Ooh,
Shield fans rejoice. Something from that show actually comes over to the
All right.
MCU.
I've never
So
seen
let's
it.
do this then. Like,
even so, a little late.
Yeah, that was all about the Ghost Rider arc over
That
there.
Yeah.
was one episode that I saw.
I think we got ourselves about around to the end of this, but I want to ask. We're going to talk
Yeah.
about that quick Darkhold scene, but let me ask you guys real quick about the mid credit scene, real quick. I mean, I feel it's fairly obvious. You guys might just say affirmative if you agree, but it's obviously setting up Captain Marvel too, right? It's going to set up Photon or Spectrum or Monica Rambeau, whatever her future is going forward in the MCU as a superhero. Some people
Yeah.
have speculated that was the scroll that she was friends with in Captain Marvel, but no, it wasn't because she would have recognized her. So I'm just wondering who that is, and I'm wondering who sent her. Um, I'm guessing it's Nick Fury, but
Oh, well,
for what
that's a
reason?
given.
I guess we shall see. What do you guys think about the mid credit scene? Real quick thoughts on that, Walt.
Um, definitely setting up Captain Marvel 2, maybe even setting up Secret Invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because the Skrulls obviously are intimately involved in that. Um, I'm kind of leaning toward Nick Fury, but I also thought it might have been Thalos.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one that sent him on behalf of Nick Fury.
They
Um,
do work together,
but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, they work together. He's the guy. I like her enthusiasm. She was like super excited to head out in
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
and I like that part of the character of her. Where she's a fledgling superhero. She now has superpowers. She thinks it's really cool. Maybe this is a way to honor her mom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious as to the relationship that she will have with Captain Marvel. You know,
They did have that
but
hint that
I'm
there was something wrong with the relationship earlier in
right.
the series.
Exactly. So I'm curious as to how that's gonna be resolved. But I'm actually excited for her character. I
Yeah.
want to see more. I think the actress portrayed her very very well. And like I said, she's got that enthusiasm. You know that I want to see more. So,
And her powers are
but
pretty
yeah,
cool in the
it
comic, so I'd like to see more
yeah,
of that. They showed a little bit of it in this
definitely.
episode. Eli, what did
Yep.
you think of Monica's quick little mid credit scene with the scrolls?
Honestly, I didn't really have any feelings about this
Hmm.
because I mean, it's just there. I don't know what they can do with the scrolls, and I know you're saying Captain Marvel 2 now,
Hmm.
so
Secret
Yeah,
Invasion,
Secret
yeah.
Invasion in the
but it's
comics,
gonna Secret Invasion's
they basically take over all of the heroes. Like if you find out that that all of the heroes in Marvel basically were scrolls the entire time,
yeah.
so that's something they could do possibly in the MCU.
Yeah, they're gonna have to change it a little bit,
Yeah.
but it'll
What,
be
Hmm.
interesting.
what's the dude, the scroll who's like combined with like the thing,
Super
Super
Scroll.
Scroll.
Super Scroll?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that I'm excited for
We will probably see
because
that.
I'm, yeah, I'm thinking that they're gonna lead into him, so that is gonna be
I feel like
amazing.
Yeah,
these Captain Marvel
we
movies
don't
will
have a
introduce him at some point.
yeah, and we don't have a full sense of the scrolls as a
Hmm.
species,
Yeah,
and in
it's
general, we just know that one small faction from Captain
yeah,
Marvel. So maybe the scrolls are more nefarious, and then that's where you get
Right.
Super Scroll.
I
yeah. I
mean, I
really like.
even think the ones we already have are nefarious. They're just biding
Just
their
like the
time.
comics, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So
I really really like how they're just like clouded in mystery. It's like you have no idea what the hell is
Yeah.
going on with these credit scenes,
Yeah.
right?
All right. So let's wrap it up with the final post credit scene, which of course to me, I'll say this has got some huge implications for a couple of reasons. So people are talking about where Wanda is. All right. I think that's number one. And we're going to have to start theorizing again. I'm not going to go too crazy because a lot of our theories, again, were super freaking wrong for WandaVision. But a
yeah.
lot of people are theorizing that
I'm
that's
glad.
Wundagore in the end credit scene, which in the comics is one of the bases for the High Evolutionary. Just saying. And it's
Hmm.
also where in one of Wanda and Pietro's storylines, I think that's where they're born. Like I'm not always super clear because they've retconned it so much over the years, but I believe that that's tied to
Yeah.
where they're born in the comics. So that's probably going to deal with something. Again, maybe it was just an Easter egg. We'll see. But I think this is a really really cool setup for the MCU going forward. And I do think this as a small thought. I think there's still a chance, Walt, to your theory that Wanda might end up being a villain of some sort, because Agatha definitely says a couple of times, "You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you started. You're destined to destroy the world." She has all these evil proclamations for her, and there's a kind of a hint of malice to her reading the Darkhold at the end there, right? I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
the music that's playing is the music from Doctor Strange. You guys should know in that scene if you didn't note it. So that's definitely tying it to the Doctor Strange sequel. And also in the comics, again, the precedent, which I'm not going to make any huge bold predictions, like I said, but in the comics, the Darkhold is one of the ways that Wanda gets controlled by malevolent beings like Cthon and all of that. So maybe we'll still see that. What is your guys' thoughts on that whole post-credit scene and all of that? AJ, please.
Evil Scarlet Witch 2030,
Yeah.
2029,
29.
2028. I don't know. But basically, future Evil Scarlet Witch
Yeah,
confirmed.
I think that's definitely something that was implicated there. What else did you think about that whole scene?
I thought it was eerie, and I loved it.
One of the things that was cool about it that notes how much stronger she's supposed to be than Doctor Strange, which again Agatha said she's stronger than the Sorcerer Supreme, right? I just watched Doctor Strange yesterday, and if you notice in that movie, Doctor Strange can do the astral projection where he's outside of his body, but he can only do it when he's asleep or unconscious.
Yeah, it's like really
Hmm.
tough for him to do it.
Wanda was
Is he the
awake
Sorcerer
doing it.
Supreme yet?
What's that?
Is he the Sorcerer
No,
Supreme
no,
yet? I
he's
don't think
actually,
he
you know
is,
what?
right?
He's not. He's not.
That's the
I
other
did note
thing I was gonna
that
say.
difference in their power was definitely noted in that scene because Wanda can do it while she's fully
Oh
awake and
yeah,
doing whatever she wants.
no doubt.
Yeah, I was about to say like they never actually called the Ancient One the Sorcerer Supreme.
They
No,
did.
from the in
They
the
did.
movie.
They
Oh,
did.
they
Yeah, I
did.
saw it yesterday.
Oh,
Like
okay.
so, because I felt compelled to recap a little bit of that since I feel like it ties in. They do refer to her as the Sorcerer Supreme in
But
Doctor
they
Strange.
never mentioned Doctor
No,
Strange as the
only the
Sorcerer
Ancient One.
Supreme.
So maybe Agatha is referencing the ancient
Maybe.
one, and Doctor Strange is on
Yeah,
a whole
but
different power level.
even
It has to be.
still, even
Ooh.
still, even still, Scarlet Witch will be much stronger.
Yes,
There's no doubt
at least
about it.
Yeah,
initially.
I'll
Yeah,
give you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least, or she
Hmm.
should be all the time because in the comics she's more powerful than Doctor Strange, and he's never been stronger
Right.
than her,
uh,
except for a couple of instances where
yeah.
he's used certain spells and powers, but that's rare. Okay, Eli, your thoughts on this final scene? Is that Wandagore? What's up with the Darkhold? Is this tying into Doctor Strange too? Is Wanda evil? Your thoughts?
Yep. It was. I liked what they did. It was very eerie, like
Mm-hmm.
AJ said,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was very eerie and very dark. But I mean, they did it way too late. You should have. There should have been signs, more signs.
That she would be. What sort of signs do you mean?
Like you can obviously that she's turning. I mean, she seems like she's becoming a villain, right? There should have been more signs for like during the episode, but
I
yeah,
think there were, but like we all kind of
it's
said, like they didn't flesh them out enough, right? Because they have her controlling people. They have that part where she lashes out at the townspeople when Agatha frees their minds, and they start basically telling her like, free us, or kill us," and she like puts the Wanda energy around their necks and starts choking them. So they have all these
Force
parts in
choke.
the episode, but they don't really focus on them. So that's why, to me, like
yeah.
the like Walt said a couple of times, they don't connect in a way that makes her a proper villain or set her up to be a proper villain in an overt way. It's just too under the surface, and I think it would have been better if we were like, "Oh man, she's gonna be the villain," at least in a way that was more overt. But I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know. Our thoughts.
I didn't really have much thoughts on that, but I have theories.
So what are the
So go
theories then?
ahead.
Oh
Oh,
boy.
we're gonna go
This
into
is
that
that
now.
part of
Yeah,
the
go for it.
episode. If you have any theories,
Yeah,
we're
go
gonna
for it.
finish off with that. So, what theories and thoughts?
She starts a multiverse.
Who starts the multiverse? Doctor Strange? Wanda.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is that a given, or am I
I
just
don't.
like?
I don't think it's a
Well,
given.
It's very
nothing
possible.
is ever really given, but
You know why I don't think it's a
it
given?
does seem going.
I feel like at this point I don't know. Other than just like messing with the wrong magic, I don't have a good theory as to specifically how I feel that she would do it. Although I still think
I
it's a
don't
good
think maybe
chance that she'll
she's.
be behind it in a very big way.
She's
Yeah, I don't think she'll create the multiverse per se, but I think she might, in messing with the Darkhold, create that rift.
I think
You
Like a
know,
combination
she's
of
gonna try
things.
and search.
Yep.
yeah.
I think she's gonna screw it up by trying to search for her children. Because
Yeah.
it was
Oh,
too
the whole
little.
Flash syndrome,
Yeah, it was too little time to get over something like that, right? So, and she immediately jumps into the dark hold. So I mean,
and she hears their voices.
At the
yeah.
very
So
end.
it has to be that she's looking for her children.
Or that could also be temptation
You know what was
But
interesting about how they
by the entity that controls the book, no?
yeah.
but
Because it could be like, hey, you could do this.
yeah,
Dangle it here.
Yeah, maybe you can free me from the
They
Darkhold.
have to be
Yeah.
careful that they don't basically do the same thing over again with Wanda though, because if they do that, it's another cycle of grief, which okay, cool. You could do it a little
Hmm.
differently for her kids, but it's also her being the villain again, which she's already been twice, kind of. She was the villain when she was introduced. She was the villain
Okay.
briefly in this show and then became the hero again. And then she's gonna be the villain again, which it could work, but
Okay, but
well, that's when you.
I
but
kind of see Wanda is not long for the MCU. To be quite
yeah,
Yeah,
she's
honest, I
probably
think
gonna die in one of the maybe not a multiverse of madness, but maybe not that far after that. It's possible.
yeah, her arc. It seems like she's falling down this rabbit hole and but yet there's still a lot of redeeming qualities
Hmm.
about her. And so, maybe she's one of these characters that gets redeemed at the end and stuff. That seems the way that you know Wanda's arc is kind of
She's
trending.
she's Dark Phoenix in the MCU. I mean,
Yeah,
right? Because the
I
Scarlet
I
Witch
kind of
seems
I
like a
kind of agree.
kind of like an entity that inhabits people just like the Dark Phoenix does, or the Phoenix Force.
Hmm.
So she's kind of like
Yeah,
that. I will say there's something I noticed actually in the final scene that I thought was interesting. I don't know if you guys what you guys thought of this, but the way that they shot that final scene, it was almost like Billy and Tommy's spirits were going to visit her, because it's a one shot that goes and zooms into the house, follows her into the room where she's astral projecting, and then it goes right in her face, and that's when you hear their voices. So it's almost a hint like their spirit is out there somewhere, because she did
yeah,
create
that's
spirits and
interesting.
souls, and at least that's the implication from what I saw. I don't know. I don't know. I guess, but
It's not a bad theory.
I don't know. What are the theory? You guys have any other thoughts and theories? I'm kind of dry, like I said. I don't. I've maybe haven't watched this episode over and over again enough times to kind of see where it's gonna go. Other than what we kind of discussed already, do you guys have any other thoughts or theories?
Well, me, I just think that this whole series shows just how far Wanda is willing to go
Mm-hmm.
to do things.
That's a good
So
point.
when a thing like Mephisto, Kython, dangles her
Mm-hmm.
children in front of her, I think that's going to willingly make her a villain, however involuntary it might seem.
So you're still believing and thinking, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I just want to make sure we're clear. You think it's going to be end up being a Chthon or a Mephisto in the end, anyway, even though we didn't get them
Type
here, right?
character.
Type character.
Yeah.
Or Nightmare.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Nightmare is another character that's been bandied
It can't
around.
be the devil though,
You know,
because then they won't be able to release this movie in China, and Marvel can't
yeah.
afford to do that.
I'm just still annoyed that Doctor Strange didn't make an appearance somewhere in this.
Or at least even one of like his sorcerer
Yeah,
dudes.
just checking.
Wong.
I
Wong.
Wong would have been when
I
the
love Wong.
fact that the Darkhold is out there and there's like no, there's this really, you know powerful book piece of literature out there, and there's like no, I mean, it's like you said before, this is his wheelhouse. The Avengers are there to protect the Earth. Doctor Strange and his ilk are supposed to be protecting the mystical realm. Well, you know what? You just had a threat, a code red on a mystical level, and you don't even
Yeah.
show up. I mean, it just seems out of place.
I think that they could put
Um,
put some good story on it in the Multiverse of Madness to explain it, but we will really see if that's what they end up doing.
Yeah, but
Because they could maybe explain
Yeah.
that something that he was doing. Doctor Strange in the comics, sometimes he'll go off somewhere and try to like figure out a spell or like an incantation, and he's gone for a while just to go get that spell so he can whoop somebody's butt. So
but he's
maybe,
got lackeys. He's got
yeah, but they
staff.
can't take out
but
Wanda.
even still,
I
You
mean,
know,
at the
he
same,
should
I mean,
drop
think of it
that.
this
not
way.
even that. At the
Think of it this way: he can't stop Wanda, and they can't stop Wanda if she really, really wants to do what she wants, right? So maybe he has to go get
it's
some
true.
power or something in order to stop her, and that's where he was.
But
Mm,
at the very least, you got to investigate,
yeah,
right, and see exactly
you
what's
should have
going
sent a
on.
private investigator.
So,
Maybe he sent
You
Jimmy,
know what would have been
Agent Woo.
interesting?
yeah, maybe
He works for them.
The meat
Yeah,
puppet.
he works with him
You
and
know what would
for
have
him.
been
What's up?
interesting is if, because maybe now this is going to be far
Uh huh.
out there, but then it would have been better if this actually played. Well, here's what I was thinking: what
Mhm.
if they do know the Darkhold was out there, but a subplan of Agatha's was to hide in the hex, because technically no one knew about it until people were like, "Okay, well, wait, the whole town's missing."
Yeah,
What?
Otherwise, no one
Doctor
really
Strange would have
knew.
known. Would have
I think
known.
he
Yeah,
might have, but I'm still gonna go with the
I think
theory
he
that
would.
he was going to find some special power.
That would have popped up on his magic
Yeah,
radar.
yeah.
absolutely.
You
Or
know,
somebody else's. Again,
so his Madar.
like yeah, his
Madar.
magic
Madar.
radar would definitely be tingling in that moment, I feel
Yeah.
like. But
And
we'll
then I
see what they
guess to
choose.
maybe what would have
Hmm.
rectified it is if they showed guys like Wong coming to investigate. Like, hey,
You said that, I think, Walt.
That
we
would have been
know this
cool.
witch Agatha might be here. We felt the Darkhold when the seams were starting to come apart and when this thing expanded.
And a
That
good
would have been a good segue into that.
and a good tie into the movie. You know.
Yeah.
You know what? Also,
So
I think maybe I just kind of thought of from watching Doctor Strange yesterday. If you remember, they have the power to go into the mirror dimension, and then they can't be seen, and they're not interacting with the real world. Maybe somebody was there, and they were waiting for things to get
there you
really
go.
out of hand, or maybe they
I
were doing
forgot
little
about
things
that.
in the background.
True.
Maybe they were the ones that allowed Jimmy to speak to Wanda through the radio. Like, who knows? Maybe there's something that they were doing in the background. And I feel like if Multiverse of Madness integrates that in a really good way, then I'll actually end up enjoying this show a little bit more, right? So we have that standard sometimes where you wait for like where the story goes. So if it integrates that in a nice way, then I'm gonna like this even more. Uh,
Yeah,
MCU's
it's kind of like the whole Superman Metropolis fight scene, and then all of a sudden in BVS we see it from Ben
yeah,
Affleck's perspective. You know, that's a good way of putting
even
it.
in the MCU,
So,
the Battle of New York in Endgame, when they go back, remember that you find out that the magicians of the MCU, the ancient ones, and all of them, they were fighting against
Just watch it.
the
Oh, they
forces, and yeah,
were.
they remember they're on the rooftops in Endgame, trying to block and fight
Oh,
mhm.
all of the bad guys that Loki and Thanos sent.
I don't
So
remember
maybe it'll
that.
be something like that. That's why I was thinking maybe it might end up being something like that. But like I said,
Yeah,
we'll
that
see
works.
what they end up doing with it. Are you guys excited to see Multiverse of Madness more or
Oh, for
less?
sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
I just honestly, WandaVision just made me set my expectations higher for
cool.
that. So
I agree.
Right now, I'm super excited for Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh,
That I'm just salivating to
and
watch,
Loki.
can't wait for
especially with everybody talking about how it's kind of in the vein of what does they say when
Winter
in
Soldier.
the vein of the
Yeah.
Winter Soldier, you
Mm-hmm.
know, which is one of my favorite MCU
Oh,
films. So if they kind of
Okay.
replicate that on a series level, oh boy.
All right. So we had our thoughts on the episode overall, on the moments, on our favorite details with characters and plot points. Some that weren't great, some that were. So let's rate the series. I think right overall. You guys think it's time to rate the series overall?
Yeah,
Let's
let's
do it.
do it.
All right. So I'll start. Um, I am going to give WandaVision the series. The series. Man, I'm stuck in a little middle point here, but I think overall I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think if this final episode had hit a little bit better and ended a little bit better, it would have been an 8 out of 5 or maybe even a 9 for me. But I think overall it definitely was a very very good show, and in a weird way, I guess I'll try to explain this as best as I can. It both exceeded my expectations, and then it in the end it kind of fell flat on some of my expectations. And I think it's because I was really excited about this show for a while. This is actually the MCU TV show that I've been most excited about. I don't know if I mentioned that to you guys.
Me
Outside
too,
of, yeah,
actually.
other than Loki and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm very excited about those as well. Do not get me wrong. Super excited. But this was the one I was most excited about because I've read the Vision comic and I really liked how they did the storylines in that. And then when it came out, I was like, awesome. This is about as good, maybe even better than I expected because of how complex and interesting the story was going to be and how different it was going to be. But then, like I said, like we've all kind of said in the end, some of it fell a little flat, right? So that's where it kind of the expectation that built up while I was watching the show, which ended up being even higher than the high expectation I had already set before I watched the show, ended up being slightly disappointed. So yeah, for me, it is an 8 out of 10. What about you guys?
So me, I'm just finally that we have magic good and
Mm-hmm.
proper. That's one of the big takeaways for me from this show. Yes, you kind of had it with Doctor Strange, but it was more of a like it was edging along the sciency part.
Yeah.
Here it's outright good and
Mm-hmm.
proper. Thank you.
Runes and spells and all that.
And like
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then like you said, it was I'm going to make an analogy to something I often do in GT. I'll have a really good send off when I hijack a
Okay.
plane. And you'll be soaring high and nice for really, it's a really good time. And then somewhere along the way, I'm not going to say this show crashed into a blimp, but it did certainly start to meander a bit downwards on the last
Yeah.
episode. Because to me, it didn't feel like it was complete.
Yeah. It's a bridge.
So, uh, yeah. So for me, I give this an 8.5.
Okay.
I'm not going to give it the 9 because, again, while I liked all the other stuff, there was still that weirdness at the
Mhm.
end. But again, on the flip side, like I said, it got magic. And then, of course, I just really like the story with Wanda,
Yeah.
period. So, yeah, 8.5. That's the
All
rating.
right. Walt, how about you, sir? What did you think about it overall?
I'm kind of agreeing with everybody here. I think the first set of episodes were superior um to the last one, and so um the last one had a tough task, no doubt.
I
it,
agree.
it had to kind of wrap up all of these. I wouldn't say confusing, but complicated storylines. I think I liked how they framed the first set of episodes in that sense, the whole sitcom
Mhm.
thing, and it made sense based on her backstory, where she loves sitcoms. So obviously that's something that made her comfortable enough, and that's was her reality. When you think of things like that, you always want to be comforted by the things
Yeah.
that you know.
That was a really
And
super
so,
creative high point for the show.
right,
Great concept.
exactly. So the way that they did it, again, was far superior. Toward the end, they had a tough time sticking the landing. I think they did it well, but
Hmm.
after seeing the series previously, I was expecting something more satisfying, and I
Yeah.
I think that was the issue. I'm actually glad that they didn't try to force a villain in this last episode,
Hmm.
because I think it
Yeah.
would have done a disservice to that person and stuff, or that character. But overall, I think I'm gonna agree with you guys. I'm at the 8 out of 10 for this
Okay.
series. I think it was well done. There was nothing wrong with the performances. I thought they were all great. I think the last episode had a tough time sticking
Yeah.
the landing.
I think the
Yeah.
last episode kind of was like a 7.5 when I was hoping for a 9. And that brought it all down a
Right,
little bit.
exactly.
It was still entertaining, but just not enough. Maybe it would have benefited from like 5 more minutes or something like that to flesh it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And let's get to the man of the moment,
The
the
cringe
man of the
lord.
hour, the cringe lord. You are the cringe lord. Eli, what are your final thoughts on WandaVision this series, and what's your rating for it?
Yeah, you guys know I'm a little bit harsher
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to rating
How much
stuff.
harsher in this case, though?
Well, I'll give you this. It wasn't by much. 7 out
That's
of 10.
good. That's still solid.
I'm gonna use another analogy. I just didn't like the last episode
Mhm.
at all, honestly. But it was like a staircase in a tower, and then somebody just blew up one side of the tower, so that staircase was just like completely destroyed. So you couldn't go
Oh, so
up,
Alduin.
yeah, and you had to go straight back down. It's like it all came crumbling apart.
Okay. I mean, that's in line with
There you
what we
go.
said in some points. I agree. Yeah. Okay.
All
All right. So that's your final thoughts on the episode.
I think
All
that
right.
works.
All right. So WandaVision. Man, we got through it and it was entertaining. It seems like everybody enjoyed it. Um, I'm just happy that we got some MCU stuff back. I'm glad. I mean, I'll say this much, and I think this kind of reflects our feeling from the very beginning, and it still continues to this moment, even if the show wasn't as great as we wanted it to be. We're still all kind of happy that the MCU is back. We're not feeling that fatigue. I'm happy to see, like Walt, you said,
So far.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm really excited to see Loki now. So, and we're gonna get it right away. So I'm looking forward to it. And thank you, Marvel, for giving us WandaVision, another awesome show that we could definitely definitely sink our teeth into and talk a little bit more about, even theory-wise, in the future as we get to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. All right, so that's it. We're going to wrap it up for you guys. As before, we want to thank you if there were any issues during the episode with audio, and thank you for bearing with us if you had any issues with that audio. A reminder, any feedback is welcome from the fans, so please let us know if you had any issues with the audio. If you liked something about the episode, if you have some thoughts about a future episode, please let us know. As before, as noted earlier in the episode, and as always, the best way to support your favorite podcast crew, of course, is to like, rate, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You know the spiel. You can find us where all of your favorite podcast platforms are sold. So, guys, get out there, support us, like, rate, share, and subscribe. Thank you to our fans very, 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 very much. And from the Get Geek podcast crew, I'm going to say to y'all out there, stay geeky, my friends.
Woot woot.